Let us get started. On behalf of the Southington Board of Finance, I'd like to welcome everybody to this public hearing on the 2025-2026 budget. This is the one that begins July 1, 2025 and goes to the following year. Today is Monday, March 4th, 2025. Let us stand for a Pledge of Allegiance, then we'll get into the business. Thank you. In the audience, we have a lot of elected officials. I'd like to recognize them for one reason, just so you could be aware of who they are if you want to walk up to them and address an issue with somebody who's either on the Board of Ed, Town Council, Planning and Zoning, or Town Clerk. So ask anybody from the Town Council, Board of Education, Planning and Zoning, or the Town Clerk's office to please stand just so folks could know who you are and that you're here. Okay, and I believe I speak for them a little bit that they'll be here after this meeting for a few minutes if anybody had a question or wanted to talk to them more one-on-one. Hope that's okay, elected officials. We're missing one member. Candace said that she would review the tapes. She had a medical issue, so she can't be with us, but she committed to reviewing the video recording so she could also hear the comments the same way we will. I want to explain the process used to develop the budget and levy the taxes. While we are one town, our budget is essentially developed in two parts. There's a Board of Education budget and a general government budget. At a high level, the Board of Education budget presents the educational programming or an operations budget to the Board of Finance. At the same time, the town manager presents the general government budget. Included in budget are the revenue items, predominantly state grants, interest income, local fees for services, and then the expense items. The expenses are much greater than the revenue, so once the budget's approved, taxes will be levied to make up the difference. The town maintains a grand list, which includes all the residential and commercial property, vehicles, and business property. These assets are assigned a value based upon their market value. The amount of money needed to balance our budget is levied to the owners of the property based upon the value of the property they own. In the private sector, which is much like a family setting, your income and assets determine what your expenses could be. In the public government sector, the spending is determined first, and then the income required to meet that spending is determined second, and then it's levied on the taxpayers. When you are spending someone else's money on other people, it requires careful oversight. Without careful oversight, it's easy to both overspend and overtax. The Board of Finance, your elected citizen volunteer board, exists to carefully review the budget, the financial health of the town, in conjunction with the needs and desires of the town, the residents and businesses, while considering the health of the state and the overall economy and its impact on our citizens. In a careful oversight process, the Board of Finance will recommend a budget to the Town Council. Once the Town Council approves the budget, the Board of Finance will then set the mill rate. The complexities or risk factors that face us as we recommend this budget. First, it's a 7.6% increase as presented. I don't remember seeing one that high in totality in my time on the board, and I think some others, I'm not sure we all just chatted about it. The impacts of inflation, which is cumulative, and other factors which have driven up the cost of services. While the inflation rate has thankfully decreased, figured out to be around 3%, higher prices continue to challenge us. Again, I make the point that it's cumulative. It's not like the weather. It's warm today, it's cold tomorrow. It's like exposure to radiation. Once you have it, it accumulates with you. It doesn't go down unless you have deflation, which is rare. Our health insurance costs, they continue to go up from more usage, more complicated offerings, more complicated medical world. That's a challenge for us because we offer health insurance to over 1,300 employees. The cost increases that our families and businesses are incurring in their lives, aside from taxes and their operating expenses. Those are some of the risk factors I've identified. As we introduce the 25-26 budget, keep in mind a few points. We remain a healthy community. We have solid reserves. One little note on the reserves: once we accumulate reserves, those funds could only be used for capital. A lot of people say, well, why don't you use them for operations? We have a 7.6% tax increase coming. Can't we take some of those reserves and soften that increase? We can, only to the extent we're paying for capital items, not operations. Keep that in mind. So we have solid reserves. We did not have net grand list growth this year, due in large part to a decrease in motor vehicle values and the way in which they're valued. The grand list decreased $6 million, and that means the grand list will not provide any additional revenue as it has in years past. In fact, our revenue will be down about $200,000 from the decrease in the grand list. Most other years, most of us have been here, things get built in town, things get expanded, and new stuff comes on the grand list, stuff that's never been taxed before. When we apply the current mill rate to it, we find sometimes $2.5 million, $1 million. This time it's working against us. We're $200,000 less, just to take a second to explain it. The total budget request is $191 million. That's the cost to operate the town of Southington for a year, according to this budget. It's $10.1 million more than last year's budget of $181 million. If you talk to people, they'll tell you 10.1 is level services. It's a lot of it. The majority of it is the same stuff as last year, done again this year for $10.1 million more dollars. You might hear that when the budgets are presented. The Board of Education is seeking an increase of $7.7 million, or 6.6%. General Government, which includes debt service, is seeking an increase of $2.3 million, or 4.4%. The impact is a 2.39 mill increase, or 7.6% tax increase. Therefore, property assessed at $200,000, that would be a property appraised at $285,000. You want to round it up, say around $300,000 appraised, assessed to 70%, around $200,000. They will see from the proposed budget a tax increase of $683. Their taxes would go from $8,983 per year to $9,666 per year as the mill rate moves from 31.44 to 33.83. And again, this is the budget presented to the Board of Finance. This is how we got it. Now we have to look at it and see, what's in it and what it looks like. Included is the use of excess fund balance, the rainy day fund for capital. We're going to use $1.5 million. Take that out of the excess rainy day. So we have the rainy day fund, we have more. Take it out of the excess and use that for to pay for capital. The excess rainy day fund comes from spending that was withheld in the prior years, and it drove a surplus. The amount we're taking from the rainy day is $500,000 less than last year. The Board of Education budget only includes educational programming and not the buildings or teacher retirement. The buildings fall on the general government side of the budget as capital, and the teacher retirement is currently funded by the state. The town serves in a capacity like a landlord with the school buildings, but since we're one community, no rent is exchanged. But the town handles the buildings and the improvements. As you may know, Southington's completely renovated many of its schools, and we carry a significant debt burden for school renovations. But at the same time, schools are important to Southington as one community. Currently, the Board of Finance is in the process of reviewing the budget to understand the revenue estimates and the spending needs as expressed by the town manager and the Board of Ed. The Board of Finance is collaborating with the taxpayers to determine their priorities and thoughts regarding the budget. Every member of the Board of Finance is committed to collaborating with all the stakeholders, assessing the economy, asking questions, seeking input, serving as a voice of reason, and ultimately making a fiscally responsible recommendation to the Town Council. You are here tonight to provide valuable input to us as we work towards finalizing our recommendation. We are committed to being a government which respects, works for, and is accountable to its citizens. Taxpayers can participate in the process by reviewing the budget. It's available up on the town website, voicing opinions, watching the meetings and the workshops in person, or by streaming the meeting videos on the web, and also by collaborating with us as we move towards a final recommendation. All citizens should remember that we strive to do what's in the best interest of the entire town of Southington, both in the short term and the long term. As we work towards a budget, we must remain mindful that Southington is made up of over 43,000 people, many diverse businesses, each with different needs, different expectations, different financial situations, in different stages of life, impacted differently from the economy, possessing different views on the role of government, and holding different opinions on the scope of education that should be provided to our youth. Our recommendation must consider economic diversity of our people, but we also must assess the risks that are facing our community. On an ongoing basis, this board asks a lot of questions in public and in private, collaborates with many people, strives for responsible spending, seeks to eliminate waste, drive transparency. It encourages management to set a vision and prioritize, and ultimately, this board seeks the most cost-effective way to finance government operations. This is what there's 6 of us, this is what we commit to, working together. We'll now hear from any Board of Finance member wishing to speak. Now I'll call upon our town manager, Mr. Alex Richardone, to present his remarks for the general government side of the budget. And thank you all for listening to that.
Thank you, Chairman Leary. Thank you, Honorable Board of Finance, the Board of Education folks who are here, the Town Council folks are here, the public. Thank you to the public who are here as well. And most importantly, thank you to the department heads and staff who are here to give the public the most information as possible. Mr. Chairman, you took about everything I was going to speak about and reiterate to the audience already, so I'm going to make it much shorter than I originally had it. Just want a couple highlights for the Board of Finance and for the public. This is a difficult budget year. There is no question. The budget that I presented is not one that I wanted to present, but I felt that I had to present. As a taxpayer who spends over $30,000 a year in property taxes to the town of Southington, this budget will significantly affect me as well and my family. Quite frankly, the cost of doing business is going up. Our insurance costs are going up close to 11% for health insurance. We're in a competitive market for labor, and we're doing all we can to control those costs. I can tell you that I've asked the department heads to all come up with budget cuts, and this because we knew how difficult this budget year was. Almost every single department has come up with cost savings, things that would allow them to keep their services consistent and to the same standards, but do them at a better rate. The budget has those detailed in the back of it. I'm happy to share those with anybody that's here. Those are also on the town's website. There are some reductions in staff. I've reduced 2 part-time positions and 2 full-time positions through attrition. 2 of those positions are just removed, and 2 of those will be removed after some retirements after June 30th. Those are not easy decisions to make. There's a lot of deliberation and time went into seeing what was absolutely necessary to deliver the same services in the last budget year that will be delivered in this coming budget year, and that's what we were able to do. Just to touch briefly on revenues, it's no secret that the federal government and the state government are very, very pressured right now. I learned recently, a few hours ago, that the special education budget that Steve and Nancy probably can speak much better than I can about, Governor Lamont has has stated he is going to veto it. We're not going to get any help on those issues. We lost $800,000 of sales tax sharing that we budgeted in the current year. That has been removed from the budget going forward. We're close to $1 million loss of state aid. We don't know what's going to happen with some of our federal aid. We have put the town in the position to be as eligible for federal aid as possible, but I can't predict what's going to happen. We do have firefighters, we do have a lot of public safety grants that come through to support the town, and the predictions are, there are no predictions at this point. Another last final thing about the mill rate, there are going to be most likely 2 proposed mill rates. We're in a reevaluation year, so this is only going to be a 1-year blip, but the state of Connecticut caps the mill rate on motor vehicles at 32 and change. The budget as presented creates a mill rate that's higher than that, meaning the motor vehicle mill rate will be capped, and the excess costs that are the excess revenue that we're not able to generate at an even level from motor vehicles in personal property and real estate will be shifted on to personal property and real estate taxes. So there will be a burden on the homeowners and business owners who own real estate and personal property, and a benefit to those who just own motor vehicles in this coming year with the budget that's presented. I do want to thank the department heads and the town staff. They're doing a wonderful job. They know the position that we're in. They're doing all they can in this current budget cycle to preserve funds to possibly carry forward in the future, to reallocate money. It's not easy for them whatsoever. We have, in my opinion, the absolute best team running this town for the taxpayers in Southington ever. There's a lot of new faces in this crowd if you look over here, and they're absolutely top performers. There's a lot of old faces. They're top performers as well. And I can assure every resident and every taxpayer in this town that the staff that is working for them and that they pay out of their own pocket is working hard every single day and in their best interests. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I do want to remind everybody, we had workshops with the staff, the key departments that town manager has mentioned. They're available on video if anybody would like to see them. You can see what these departments do. I asked them some insightful questions, so they frame their reports around those questions. So something unique, something the public wouldn't know that they did, what they did for cost savings. One's a nice video, one we didn't have a videographer, so we just have the audio. But they're available, and we encourage you to use them. There's also a Board of Ed presentation videotape, so we want the public engagement. Now we'll hear from Mrs. Colleen Clark, Board of Ed Chair.
Thank you, Chairman Leary, and good evening to the Board of Finance members and members of the public that are here. It is my privilege to be here this evening to represent the work of the Board of Education and to hear from the citizens of our community. As you know, the work done on this budget, first by our administration and then the board, was not an easy task. It is no secret that we are dealing with declining revenue sharing from the state and federal government while having higher contractual obligations as well as increases in insurance and transportation. Add to that a need for special education, an increase in special education services, as well as a decrease in grant funding. We obviously have continuing challenges to our operating budget. Our board spent considerable time and energy analyzing the entire budget, looking for any possible areas where we could realize savings without compromising our programs and services. In the end, the board was unanimous in voting to pass a budget of $123,614,448, or a 6.60 increase over the prior year. We feel this budget reflects the commitment of the Board of Education to provide the high-quality educational opportunities to our children that our community expects us to deliver. And while it's high, I think you're going to hear a common theme tonight. Things are getting more and more expensive. So right now, I would like to turn and ask Mr. Medancy to come up and share thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Clark.
Good evening, Chairman Leary, members of the Board of Finance, and members of the public here this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak as we continue the important process of reviewing the 25-26 school and town budgets. The Board of Education has approved a budget of $123,614,448, which has been said a 6.6% increase. This budget has been carefully developed to balance the educational needs of our students with the financial realities of our community. Crafting this budget was no small task. Like many districts, we face rising costs, including salaries, health insurance, and transportation, while receiving minimal increases in state and federal funding. However, through collaboration and thoughtful decision-making, we have prioritized maintaining the core programs and services that define our schools and support student success. We fully recognize the fiscal challenges facing our town, and we remain committed to working in partnership with you throughout this process. However, I must also emphasize that reductions to this budget would have real and lasting consequences for our schools. During the budget process at the board level, within your budget books, and as indicated when I presented the board's budget on February 12th, I have already reduced what was requested by our administrative team by $3.8 million. Further reductions could mean larger class sizes, limiting individual attention for our students, cuts in instructional and support staff, impacting the services available to our most vulnerable learners. A 1% reduction, approximately $1.2 million, could necessitate the elimination of multiple positions, reduction of specialized programs, or cuts to essential academic and extracurricular offerings. Every dollar in this budget is meticulously allocated to support our students' academic and developmental needs while ensuring fiscal responsibility. We understand the weight of these decisions and ask for your continued support in ensuring our students have access to the high-quality education they deserve. As we move forward, I encourage all community members to remain engaged in this process. Your input is invaluable as we work together to create an environment where students are inspired to excel, educators are empowered to innovate, and our community remains proud of our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. The purpose of this public hearing is to hear opinions of the public. So our rules are as follows. All Southington taxpayers are invited to address the Board of Finance. To allow fairness, each person will be given 3 minutes. Let me see a show of hands of how many people want to speak. If there's just a handful, I'll extend it. If I use 3 minutes to be fair to everyone, but if it looks like only 15 people want to address, I'll let people go a little bit more because that's really the purpose. Each speaker will speak from the podium so their voice can be heard and picked up by the video equipment, and just state your name and your address. And then I ask the audience to always, all the time, not just in this hearing, for the rest of your lives, to remain respectful as diverse opinions are shared. It works better for everyone. And emergency exits are located where you came in the back. There's one over here and one over there. In case of anything, you'll know the way out. It's always good to put safety first. So now it's time to listen to the taxpayers who are the most important voice in town. So, podium is yours.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Debbie Stevens, and I'm a para-educator and president of the Para, ABA, and ML Tutor Bargaining Unit. I have been a para for over 21 years and president for over 10. As you can imagine, my role has changed dramatically over these past years. The demands and expectations are greater each year. I and my peers literally hit the ground running as soon as our day starts, and our schedules are jam-packed, often with multiple children. I bring a wealth of knowledge and experience to the position as a former business professional, mom, and early childhood caregiver. I have a business degree from one of the top business schools in the country, and frankly, this school district is lucky to have me, along with many others. Sadly, my pay has decreased every year since 2020. At top step in 2022, my gross wage increase was 2.5%. In 2023, it was 2.5%, and in 2024, it was 2.75%. I didn't even get the meager 3% that Mr. Leary says that people are having a hard time living on. However, I voted yes on the new library and for the building of the senior center. I know that as a Southington resident, I have an obligation to others. My son has benefited from the Southington Public Schools, and I have skin in the game to ensure that the bar and standards for our schools are set high and that they stay there. I will tell you all that we have now come to a dangerous precipice, and we're about to fall off if we all don't do what is right for schools, students, and staff. Mr. Leary, I'm honestly going to tell you that you most certainly do have seasoned and well-trained staff in this district. We are clear about the standards and expectations, and honestly, those who are subpar usually don't last for very long because we expect a lot from one another. Years ago, no one left. As president, I see the seniority list, and there was typically little to no movement on it. Now there is a revolving door, and it is hard to get people. In the past, these jobs were coveted, competitive, and you had to volunteer or know somebody to get in. New laws now allow college students to apply, which can be great, but you need to understand that for the most part, these people are transient and will probably never be fully invested in these positions. In years to come, due to low pay that comes with a job with ever-increasing demands, these positions will be tougher to fill, and getting to your point, yes, Mr. Leary, the skill sets will suffer. It will be inevitable. In conclusion, my neighbor teaches exercise classes at the Calendar House. She makes in the high $40 range per hour. How sad is it that this town thinks that that job is more important than working with students who are our most precious assets? I'm feeling the squeeze, and I feel like I'm in a vice. I want to feel like what we do matters and that we are appreciated monetarily. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sean Grindle. I live at 119 Pattonwood. Now, when you think of a successful school system, what comes to mind? When you picture a graduate, who are you picturing? How did they get there? What supports did they have along the way? And when you think of a great educator, who do you picture? What qualities, what skills, what resources do they have? And don't worry, I'm not asking for an answer right now. But I do have a claim to make. Are you ready? It is in the best interest for our students, for the future of Southington, for the Board of Finance to pass the Board of Ed's budget in full. Now, I could stop there and go back to my seat, but ask any student in town who sat through a Lucy Calkins lesson. You can't just make a claim and not present any evidence. Can you tell that I just finished an opinion writing unit with my 5th grade students? Not only do I have 2 daughters at Thalberg, but I also have 18 students at Flanders Elementary who are under my care. And I'm proud to be an educator here in Southington. I moved here to teach, to raise my family in a school system, and be part of a community that values education. From the moment that this budget process began, when our admins came around our buildings and wanted to know what we needed this coming school year, up until today, tonight, to speak in front of you, I've been paying close attention. And I was encouraged that the Board of Education unanimously passed the budget along to you. They see how important it is for this community. They realize that 6.6% in reality is flat. It's the bare minimum. Recently, during our Board of Ed and Board of Finance workshop, Mr. Leary, you asked, how do you measure a teacher's impact year over year? And to me, it's simple. I measure it like this. I can show you a 3rd grade girl who is struggling in every academic area, who would come home in tears every night because she just wasn't cutting it and she knew it. And then I can show you a teacher who saw her, right? I can show you a staff at Thalberg who called a meeting and started a process of academic testing and changed the course of her education. And she's been excelling ever since, even if she does still hate doing her homework. I can tell you about a student who wasn't bringing a snack to school and would sit there during snack time. Then I can show you a teacher who went to BJ's and made sure that there was snacks stocked in her cupboard every week so that student would never go hungry. I can show you kids who sat alone in the hallway and struggled to make friends, and then I can show you a teacher who gathered a like-minded group of them and made a lunch bunch and started a friend group that is still together today. I can tell you about a boy from a broken home who would bury his face in his hood and refuse to engage in anything academic, and then I can show you a teacher who went to one of his baseball games, cheering him on from the stands. That small moment gave him the spark that he needed. I can show you the hundreds of students pouring their energy into their artwork, their music, their acting, robotics, chess, dance, foreign language, scouting, band, orchestra steps, and more. And then I can show you teachers who show up on their own time, spending their own money to cheer them on, to support them, and to make them feel seen. I could even calculate the thousands of dollars that educators have spent on cookies and pies and wreaths and t-shirts and candy bars and fun runs and plant sales because they believe in supporting their students' passions. We have great educators here in Southington, and the investment in and retention of the talent here in town is paramount to the town's success and the student success. Now, these moments might not be the metrics that we measure academic success by, and trust me, educators analyze data and discuss it, plan interventions, and implement strategies to foster student growth because that's our job. And by all measures, that data has been trending up post-COVID, which, as any educator can tell you, has been no small feat. No, the metric that our students measure us by isn't a trend line. The metric they measure us by can simply be a teacher saying hello to them in the morning, providing students with a safe space to be themselves, a place to learn and grow. And as teachers saw this year at our convocation, saying hello, providing that safe space can quite literally save their lives. So let me go back to my beginning, and here are my answers. What does a successful school system look like? It looks like a town that invests in its children, a town that values education. A graduate looks like someone who is confident and capable and prepared, not just with knowledge, but with resilience and empathy and a belief in their potential. And they get there because of the teachers in their town who help them along the way and don't look at them as points on a graph, but as human beings with budding dreams. What makes a great educator? It's not just the lessons they teach, it's the lives they change. It's the unwavering commitment to every child who walks through their door, regardless of where they came from. Now, I told you that I wouldn't ask for your answers right now, but I am asking for something even more important, your action. I'm asking you to stand up for our schools, for our students, and for the future of this town. Because at the end of the day, a budget is more than numbers. It's about the long-term impact on Southington. So please pass the Board of Education budget, not just for our schools or for our teachers, but for every student and child here in Southington who deserves to be seen, supported, and given a chance to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
I come to you tonight as an educator in town. My name is Anna Connolly. I live at 88 Churchill Street. I've been teaching in this town for 11 years, and very soon my own children will attend the schools in this town. After hearing the people before me speak, I felt compelled to come up here and share with you my perspective. From my point of view, I've been in the same building for 11 years, and I have not seen one of your faces enter those building hallways. I say that because you pass this budget without seeing what we do day to day.